Thanks everyone for joining. This is the first ever GreyNoise 101. So I'm going to let Michael Sergovakian, who is the newest member of the community team, take it away. So Michael, all yours.
Awesome. Well, good afternoon or good morning, everyone, wherever you are. Like Supriya mentioned, this is our first GreyNoise 101 session, so happy to have you here. My name is Michael Sargovikian. My name may seem familiar to you as I work at GreyNoise community team as our product specialist to reach out to you, our active community members, to lend support and clarity on how to find value in our data. And also with me is Supriya, our community manager, who probably needs no introduction. And she'll just be here to lend support and drop some links in the chat that I mentioned along the way. And also stick around to the end for some information on an event she'll be running next Wednesday. So with this being the first GreyNoise 101, I assume we have a wide range of users spanning from our most experienced to our newest members to the GreyNoise community. But whatever your experience level is today with GreyNoise, so it'll either be a refresher or a great opportunity to gain a base level understanding of GreyNoise and our data. So I just have a few slides here to help as visuals. These are really the items I'd like to cover and have answered for you today. So covering, what is GreyNoise and the problems we solve, dive a bit into our data, help you understand the different tags and classifications on IPs, help you feel comfortable querying the visualizers, and help you understand what actions you can take after running a query. Before we jump into all that, I'd like to point out some different resources that you can use after this session, which also have a lot of the answers that I'll be going over today. So just to go into the first one, this is our resource hub. You can actually come here on our website under resources and resource hub. Here we have different videos such as our different open forums, use cases, and other community-led events such as how I use GreyNoise. And then also under this resource tab, we have our glossary. This is how we at GreyNoise define the different terms that you'll find throughout the visualizer in our site. We have our GreyNoise blog where we try to stay up to date on different industry trends. Our research team often publishes blogs on the different major vulnerabilities that we're seeing and help you give more information into your research on those. And lastly, we have our documentation hub. Here you'll find different quick start guides, information on our different APIs, information on our use cases, information on the different integrations we offer. We have over 35 out-of-the-box integrations where we offer community API support as well. So if you are on this call and you're not a customer of GreyNoise, you are able to take advantage of some of these integrations with community API support. And lastly, also, I'd welcome you to join our community Slack. This is a great place to join the GreyNoise community, stay up to date on any events we'll be attending. There's a great mix of different security professionals of different backgrounds and experience levels. And it's also a great way to stay in touch with the different GreyNoise employees if you have any questions. So jumping into, what is GreyNoise? What do we do? The problems we solve? To start answering that question, we're focused on identifying internet background noise, which is ultimately helps you answer questions like, is this IP address hitting just me or is it hitting everyone else? If it is hitting everyone else, what is it doing when it's scanning the internet and what's its intent behind its behavior? And also, are internet scanners opportunistically scanning for particular vulnerabilities? So in other words, is this vulnerability being exploited in the wild? So getting into how people use our data and the different use cases we have, the first is to help you reduce the amount of alerts that you need to look at. And we do this by telling you what not to look at. And by giving you that added context on background noise, you can use it to filter alerts appropriately on anything that's internet facing. Secondly, you can use our data to uncover compromised devices. So whether you're using this for your own organization or your own interest, if we see scans originating from an IP address used by you or your organization, we can alert you on that. And lastly, our emerging threats use case, which you can quickly see what's being scanned for, get more information on the vulnerabilities and scanning activity to help prioritize patching. Our use cases come from our two data sets, the first being our noise data set. To collect this data, we deploy a network of sensors. You can think of them like honeypots that passively collect IP packets that sit in different corners of the internet. You'll see these IPs with a benign, malicious, or unknown classification. And our second data set is our RIOT data. This has provided context to communications between your users and common business applications. So you can think of things like Google Workspace, Microsoft Office 365, or services like CDNs and public DNS servers. They communicate through unpublished or dynamic IPs that make it difficult for security teams to track. So with that context, harmless behavior is easier to investigate, you can ignore. So we can now jump over to our visualizer. So to get to our visualizer, you can simply click Explore Our Data, or you can come to viz.greynoise.io. So to start off, let's do a query for all the IPs that GreyNoise has seen in the last day. We can do this by entering a GNQL search for last seen one day. To understand the other things you can search for, we have a cheat sheet here. You can search for things like vulnerabilities, tags by organization, but it also does a great job of filling in what you might be searching for. So doing a query for last seen one day. Yep, this pulls up all the IP addresses that GreyNoise has observed mass scan of the internet over the last day. So it's returned 278,341 results. On this left-hand side, it breaks down these IP addresses by top country, a breakdown of which IPs were malicious, unknown, or benign, whether that traffic was spoofable or not, the top tags associated with those IPs. Tags in GreyNoise is where we get a better understanding of what a device is scanning for, and it creates subsets in our data. So this is activity like web crawler activity, brute force activity, major vulnerabilities, but we can jump into that a bit later on. Top OS, top actors, and organization. But to move from here, let's get a better understanding of the different classifications. We can do this by starting out with malicious. So to break this down by malicious IPs over the last day, we can simply click classification malicious, or we can add it here to the GNQL query. So now we can see all the IPs over the last day that have been classified as malicious. Just clicking into this one will bring you to, or clicking into any IP address will bring you to an IP details page. The IP details page provides deeper context on the activity that we've seen this IP exhibit. So we can see the organization that owns this IP address. If there was an actor we could associate with this IP address. This handshake symbol denotes whether the traffic was spoofable or not. In this case, we did observe a full three-way handshake. Any observed activity like the ports this IP scanned for, any web requests it was making, fingerprints, if it were available. Up in this right-hand corner, we provide timely metadata such as the first time GreyNoise has observed this IP address, the last time we've seen it scanning the internet, and more geo data. And then right here, any tags this IP has been associated with. So in this case, this IP address has exhibited some brute force attempts, Mirai, Telnet brute forcer. So from here, to begin to understand why this IP address was classified as malicious. Since it was seen by GreyNoise, we know it was mass scanned the internet. But in this case, we could not associate an actor with this IP address. So we don't know whether or not we can trust it, or we don't know whether its intent behind this activity can be trusted. And since the actor is unknown and its activity has been associated with some vulnerabilities or some malicious activity, it gains this malicious tag. And when we have malicious IPs, or you find a malicious IP is hitting your network and it's in GreyNoise, this is one you want to set to a medium or high level priority in your triaging, because it is identified as background noise because it has been mass scanned the internet, but its activity is a bit concerning. So then jumping back to this last seen one day, we can go back to check out these unknown IPs. So clicking back into the IP details page of an unknown IP address, once again, we see some provided information, but again, we can't associate an actor with this IP address. So it's unknown because there is no tags associated with it that are malicious. So we'll live as an unknown IP address. And unknown IP addresses, again, this was most likely an opportunistic attack if it was hitting your network. It's one you want to set to a lower level or medium level priority because it's not exhibiting any malicious activity. And then lastly, coming back to our benign IP addresses. Benign IP addresses are oftentimes search engines, security research organizations, universities, or individuals that we know scan the internet in good faith. I actually have an example here I'm going to pull up because it has something interesting I'm going to share with you all. So that's how I actually search for a specific IP address. We can search IP, copy and paste there. Just looking at this IP, we can see the actor here is Shodan, who we know scans the internet in good faith for vulnerabilities. And that's why it will gain this benign classification because we know it's the intent behind its activity is not malicious in nature. But you may be wondering why this benign IP address has a malicious tag here. Again, just to reiterate, we have associated this IP address as being the actor Shodan, and its intent behind this scan was not malicious. So any benign IP addresses sitting in your network can be set to low level or to even the lowest level priority in your triaging. Then there's actually another result you may get when searching for a particular IP address. I have another example here just to save time. You may come to this no results found page, or if you're in your security tool and you have GreyNoise plugged in, it would return noise false, riot false. And what does this mean? It simply means that when GreyNoise doesn't have information on an IP, we did not observe it mass scan the internet. So in response to that, this could be indicative that the attack on your system may be targeted. And when we don't return information on IPs, these are ones that should be triaged to the top of your priority list. And just to see what a RIOT IP would look like if we come to the other day. Yep, coming to quality here, we know this is a Google IP address. And any common business service will be tagged with this RIOT classification. I'd recommend you check out actually our latest open forum where Spree and the research team had a discussion on RIOT data and the different trust levels. It's a great conversation that I would recommend you all check out after this. So now that we've checked out different classifications and tags, made some queries, we can jump over to some of the features here that we have up here in the header. Just check out this first one, our newest one, the tag trends page. Here we can see our most active tags over the past 24 hours by source IP count, and also our newest tags that have been recently added to GreyNoise. So if you saw information on new vulnerability or activity and you're wondering if GreyNoise had a tag for it, you could come here and see if we've made one yet, or you could even jump in the community Slack and ask if we've seen any activity. And you can break this down by malicious, benign, or unknown. And then from this page as well, we can actually do something cool. We can click on any of these and come to a GreyNoise trends page. You can click on any tag and come to this page. Here we can get a historical view by the last 3, 10, or 30 days to see how this vulnerability or tag has been trending by the number of IPs that have been searching for it. So in this case, for the F5 vulnerability, we saw a lot of traffic over this 2-week period, but in the last few days, we haven't really seen any IPs searching for it. And we also provide you timelines such as when the tag was created, when it was published. And from this page as well, you can take a few actions such as download a manual block list over the past 24 hours of IP scanning for this vulnerability, or you can use a block list URL on your next-gen firewall. As well, you can come here and click the view tagged IPs to come to all of the IPs that have searched for this vulnerability over the last 90 days. To get to that page as well, if you're on the IP details page, you can actually, in this tags box, click on the tag to come back to the GreyNoise trends page. Then we can go ahead and check out this our analysis tool. Our analysis tool is a way for you to enrich IPs in bulk. So as opposed to searching one by one for IPs in the search bar, you can come up here and drop a log list of IPs. I'm currently trying to copy and paste some that I've saved. So I'm gonna go ahead and analyze these, drop them in. So here we can see that after doing an analysis, 556 unique IPs were discovered that I dropped in. GreyNoise observed 379 of them mass scan the internet, and 177 of these were actually unidentified. So we get a breakdown of these IPs by which were classified as malicious, unknown, benign, the top countries, some tag information. You can come up here to see that breakdown. And actually coming over to here, we can drop down and find out which one of those were unidentified. So going back to what I talked about a moment ago, these unidentified ones are the ones you kind of want to start with in your investigation, and then move on to either malicious, into unknown, and then to benign, just to help you understand the triage I was mentioning earlier. Then we can go ahead and check out our alerts feature. This comes back to our compromised device use case. In here, you can drop in an IP block, insider notation, an IP, a tag, and we'll email you daily if we've observed any activity coming from that IP address or tag. And community users are able to take advantage of this feature with 3 searches or 3 active alerts, and paid users are able to take full advantage of this. And actually coming back to this analysis page, wanted to mention that community users are able to take advantage of this analysis tool by making 3 bulk analyses a day. And but unfortunately, you aren't able to take advantage of this export function. If you're a paid user on the call, you're able to take advantage of this export function. You can export into CSV or JSON. So that ultimately concludes our demonstration walkthrough. I thank you all again for joining. But before we get into questions, I want to flash some contact information for myself and Supriya. If you didn't have a dedicated point of contact at GreyNoise before this call, congratulations, you now have 2. And I speak for both of us in saying we'd love to chat with anyone one-on-one and hear what your interests are with GreyNoise, and actually hear how you're using GreyNoise and help you utilize us more. But again, we highly encourage you to check out our documentation page and join our community Slack. And as I mentioned, actually next Wednesday, June 1st, there will be a How I Use GreyNoise session at 11:30 a.m. And that discussion is going to be around how one of our users has used Tines to save countless hours doing manual investigations with automation, as well as identifying vulnerable hosts that are owned by an organization. So we have a couple questions here in the chat that may have already been answered.
Yeah, Michael, I can jump in and read them out just for folks. So the first, actually, Michael, do you want to read them from the FAQ form we sent out?
Yes, let me grab that real quick.
If you can, I got it. So our first question is, how can I use GreyNoise to get a view of an active in the wild attacker TTPs?
So that would be coming over to our tag trends page. I'm all over the place.
You're good. It's always demo gods, right?
Yeah. I'm going to come to trends. Yeah, so you can come here and see again how a tag has been active in the wild. Actually, yeah, you see that full question.
Yeah, I think this is great page and great example, right? So GreyNoise is positioned again uniquely. We only see uh, like things that are collectively scanning the internet. So there are other organizations, other like intel companies that provide like really detailed adversary, attack patterns and are giving you reports on those. But what we're seeing is more generic than that. So really focused on vulnerabilities and high level tagging. So this is the tags page, as Michael mentioned already. And what you can see is, that kind of pattern of activity. So we see this is the F5 big IP vuln that was somewhat recent. And obviously you can see the variance in activity over the last 30 days. So high level answer to that question. I see that the chat is kind of going crazy. So I'm going to keep going. So Michael, what does the tag spoofable mean?
Tag spoofable, coming back, I can pull that up real quick. This one. So the not spoofable tag basically essentially means that we again saw a completed three-way handshake, and that the activity coming from this IP address we can say is not spoofable, and you can trust it.
Great. And to answer the next question, there will be more sessions. We'll be running this monthly. And as far as going like further in depth, we're trying to keep these really high level for people that are just getting familiar with GreyNoise for the first time. So if you would like something more in depth, I highly recommend you set up time with Michael, or myself, but mostly Michael, to talk about the product and really dive deep. And, we can talk more about command line stuff if that's where you live. We can talk more about community integrations, and we can really tailor the conversation to you. So I can actually drop our Calendly. Please excuse the squeaking. Great. It looks like we've got plenty of more questions. So Michael, do you provide PCAP captures to help deep dive into the activity?
Actually defer that one to you, Supriya.
Yeah, totally. So we don't provide PCAP right through our data, not exposed to the visualizer or the API. However, there are certain cases that we're happy to share that data. It's very, based on circumstance, et cetera. So I highly encourage you to reach out to us and we can work it out. And that's something that we provide with our research partners. The next question is, can we put tags to benign IP addresses to add community context? And I'm going to partner this with another question: is will we eventually be able to report IPs to GreyNoise? And I'm actually really happy that you guys asked these questions. So this is something that we are really excited about to be considering. So if you have a strong opinion on this or being able to contribute, please set up time to speak with myself. This is how we draft, the future of our product. And that's having input like this. So definitely, there are other community tools out there, VirusTotal, just to name one, right, that does something similar. And that's something that we'd like to also be able to do and provide to our community. So again, I dropped that Calendly link. That's how you book time to tell me exactly why you want this and why this adds value to you. So thank you for these questions. Let's see, got a few others.
You hear, do you require that the customer owns the IP space to submit for alerts? You do not have to own the space on an IP to set up an alert. You just need to know the IP address or tag or vulnerability that you want to be alerted on. Are there going to be more sessions that go more in depth? With this being the first one, we just wanted to keep pretty high level for folks, but we have these set up to occur at the end of every month at 11 a.m. Eastern time. I'm sure as we get deeper in, it will make more sense to have sessions that maybe go a step beyond this. So we'll definitely keep you updated on that.
Okay, so we have a few more FAQs. How is GreyNoise different from other blockless CTI feeds? There's more to this, but I'll just answer that first part. And the core difference is, right, GreyNoise collects a very unique set of data. There is no other like data collector the way that GreyNoise exists right now that we're aware of. So the data that you're getting is based on data that we're collecting ourselves. I know that there are block lists out there that exist. There are open source ones. Of course, there are vendor ones that you can buy as well, that are kind of more based on like crowdsourced data, scraping feeds, abuse IPDB, that type of thing. So GreyNoise is one of a kind. These are short block lists and they update frequently. So I hope that answers your question. Yes, Martin, your question is about, he says, you offer to download IP lists manually associated with certain tags. Can you make this available via Taxi interface? Taxi and Sticks are two interfaces that we are kind of working on. Definitely not easy, but definitely on our minds. So Martin, that isn't satisfactory, but the answer is we're aware of it. And hopefully we can make this available soon. There are more questions from the Q&A. So the next is, can I create my own signature running on top of the data collected by GreyNoise, for example, to create my own tag? This is a great question, actually. And again, not something that we offer at this time, but I really encourage you to set up time to speak with us because these are great ideas. And frankly, if enough people want a certain thing, right, it's worth exploring for us on our side. So we're happy to set up time to learn more about kind of what you envision. And yeah, there's a final question here that says, what protocols do you support? And I'd love to get some clarification on that either in the chat. But I know I've got some of the research team on with me if that makes sense to either of you. Happy to get you guys to mic up. All right. I don't see any clarification. So if you're the person that asked this question, please just hit me up on Slack or Michael and I, and we can hopefully answer that question a little bit better. But Michael, I'm going to pass it back over to you because I think we're out of questions.
Awesome. Yeah. Again, thank you everyone for joining, whether you're an active customer, new to GreyNoise, been using GreyNoise, happy to have you, happy to talk with anyone that isn't in contact with anyone at GreyNoise already. A recording of this will most likely be up in this documentation hub, but also happy to send that out to anyone that hits me up and is interested in gaining that. Yeah, if you know anyone that would like to join one of these in the future, or if you'd like to jump back on again next month, we'd be happy to have you. We can send out that link. And with that, thanks for having us and have a great rest of the day.
Thanks, everyone.